Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neuroscience of Mental Health. Today is lesson 10, the final lesson, and we're going to be talking today about mindful practice and why that is so critical and why it's so important. And I first want to introduce Michelle Palladini. She's a good friend, and we've presented together at some conferences, and I think her work is phenomenal. So, Michelle, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into this area and what you're doing?
Sure. I'm a police officer in Norfolk, Massachusetts, and my role in Norfolk is split. So I spend 20 hours of my shift in the detective division, and I spend 20 hours of my shift in the school, so working as the school resource officer. Many schools now have resource officers walking the hallways, and it's my philosophy that I, as an officer, can teach you as students ways to really build that inner resiliency, ways to respond to challenge with a little bit more ease. And, I often think back that this would have been a great skill for me to have when I was in, middle school, high school. And unfortunately, mindfulness wasn't really popular back then. We didn't really know much about that. And so now, I'm starting to bring these practices that I've learned in adulthood to the students that I work with. And it's really amazing to see the way that my students really gravitate to the material. And it's a great way that I can really protect and serve from my heart and from my experience. And I'm so happy to be here and to be working with you again, Donna, on yet another project. It's exciting.
I think one of the things that's so cool is that so often when people's immediate response when they hear about mindfulness is this kind of, oh, that's that touchy feely. And I love the fact that you've not only brought it to students and gotten the buy-in here of, wow, this is really helpful, but then also working with police officers, fellow police officers, that you bring these trainings and sort of there's that immediate response. And then after spending the time with you, they're kind of like, wow, this can be really helpful. Um, I remember I was trying to get my kids who, of course, are rebelling against doing anything that their mother asks, to use Headspace. And they absolutely refused, said it was awful. And then I went into my daughter's room not too long ago, and she said, oh, I have to listen to Headspace before bed. And I said, I thought you didn't like Headspace. And she was like, well, once you stop fighting your mother on it, it actually is pretty useful.
Imagine
That
that.
openness. So it's
Mhm.
really, I love the way you present it and can get that buy-in that's so important. So we're going to
Mhm.
start with, I'm going to talk a little bit about the brain science behind why mindfulness works, because a lot of people talk about it, but a lot of people don't know why it's so useful. Um, and then we're going to go into, Michelle's going to do some mindful work with us.
Mhm.
So I introduced the characters to everyone and talked about that the dragonfly's job is kind of that override to, when the glowworm says to us, we're in threat, the dragonfly's job is to say, wait a second, no, we got this. We have these strategies in place. This is not a threat for us. And so we keep in control. We have that proactive ability to override the grasshopper before he comes out. Um, and I'll explain it a little bit in a different way as well. In our brain, we have three networks, and we can consider two of them almost like TV channels. So if you think about two different channels in your brain where you can take in information, the first is the default mode. And most of the time, we're in the default mode channel. We're kind of like, okay, that's where we think about ourselves. That's what we think about what we need to do and all the things that we're thinking about. It doesn't take much energy. It's kind of that just drifting off. And when we're daydreaming, we're in default mode. The central executive network, on the other hand, is where we actually have to concentrate, where we have to pay attention to what's going on when we're studying, when we're doing that stuff, when we really have to engage our brain and our thinking. The salience network gets to decide who's in charge at the time. The central executive network takes a lot more energy. Our brains kind of don't like to go there because it really does take energy, and we can't be in that network for a long period of time without kind of taking a break. So it's hard for us to stay in that network. But what mindful practice does is it actively engages that central executive network. It has the salience network saying, nope, you're going to put this one in charge. And by building up that strength and that ability to switch over when we want to, gives us that control that puts our dragonfly in the gym, that builds up that ability to say, nope, we don't want to go default network, because the mode where we go grasshopper is that default mode. That's the one that we're primed for. So we want to be able to engage that central executive network. And that's what we're doing. And that's why mindful practice can sometimes be difficult. It's not really easy. It seems like it should be, but it's not. And that's why. So Michelle has been doing mindful practice and mindful meditation for a long time now, and she has some great strategies that can be helpful. Particularly, I know a lot of people are at home right now with their families, and we were just saying that sometimes when you're in middle and high school, being at home with your family might not be your favorite thing to do. So in order to keep you engaged and keep you not going into that default network when you're getting upset, we can give you some strategies here.
Definitely. And Donna, while you were talking, I was just thinking about, you were saying being at home with families, and the phrase that came to mind, my fourth grader actually was just working on some language arts. And one of the phrases that she had to describe was somebody being on edge. And she didn't really know what that meant. And so I explained to her that, sometimes, when you spend too much time with your family, you find yourself, getting in a pattern, and all of a sudden, maybe something small happens that wouldn't otherwise kind of set you off and put you on edge. But, maybe your brother, throws a ball at you and it hits you in the head and you didn't catch it and you just flip out on him. It's because you're on edge. And that's kind of what we're talking about when we talk about this default network. If you're already in this mental space where you're frustrated with your family, you're missing your friends, you're bored, and it's not that you don't like your family, it's not that you don't enjoy their time, but it's a lot of time together. And then you're trying to manage your studies, you're trying to manage your friendships, and it causes a lot of stress. And what happens is that stress kind of just builds up in the body. And so we react. And so for my job as an officer, there are so many ways that I have had to learn how to respond instead of react, so that I don't come at a situation from this place of being on edge and really kind of flipping out over something that I don't need to flip out over. And being a police officer, this is really one of the most critical skills that I've had to learn, so that I can go to a call for service and I can act with good judgment. I can be safe. I can make sure other people are safe. And I can manage myself by using mindfulness-based tools. So things such as breathing. And I'm sure all of you have heard somebody tell you at one point or another, when you're on edge or you're having a hard time, they say, take a deep breath. Well, that's because a deep breath is a reset for our nervous system. It allows us to access the power of our breathing to help settle the mind, to help get us out of that default mode. And for me, when I learned breathing techniques and breathing practices, it really, really improved the way that I handled myself, the way that I was able to get to my calls safely and to think clearly. And I'll give you a short example. So when I would drive in my police car to a call that maybe is something a little bit more stressful. So it's not just a traffic violation. Maybe it's a call where somebody's not breathing and they need CPR. And I'm driving in my patrol car and I'm trying to drive as fast as I can to get there to save this person's life, but I have to do so safely. I start to notice, and this is what mindfulness has taught me, I start to notice what's happening in my body. So because I am in that default mode, I'm in that fight or flight, my heart is racing. Maybe my palms are sweaty. Maybe I start to not think as clearly, and I'm driving, but I'm not really present. And you can all relate to that too, because there are times where you have felt that you're in that mode, that your heart's racing, your palms are sweaty, you're nervous, you feel like you can't get out of your head. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter that I'm a police officer, you're a student, you're a teacher. What matters is that we're able to use our tools to get us out of that. And so one tool that I use is breathing. And I use these techniques while I'm driving. You don't have to be sitting in meditation, right? There's so many tools that we can use under the umbrella of mindfulness that don't involve sitting, on a cushion and trying to meditate for like 30 minutes a day. It's not always practical. So the breathing is really beneficial. And I can share that technique at some point if that's helpful.
You can share that technique right now if you want to. That would be great.
Perfect. Let's do it. Okay, so I'll invite you to just sit comfortably, and you can bring a little bit of length to your spine. It really helps us access the breath. It really helps us access the capacity in our lungs. So if you're seated, you can just slightly roll your shoulders back. Maybe you drop your eyes so you look down at the floor, or maybe you close your eyes. Maybe that feels good for you. And I just want you to tune in to your breath for a moment without changing it, without forcing anything. Noticing that you're breathing, noticing what you notice. And we'll begin to bring some intention to our breath. So I'll guide you through a breathing exercise. And so what we're going to do is we're going to breathe in through the nose for 4 seconds. Let's try that together. Hold the breath for 4 seconds. Breathe out through the mouth for 4 seconds. Hold the breath for 4 seconds. And we'll do another round together. In through the nose. Hold the breath. Out through the mouth. Hold the breath. Last round. In through the nose. Hold the breath. Out through the mouth. Hold the breath. And return to your natural breathing, keeping your gaze softened or keeping your eyes closed for just another moment. And see if just in those short few rounds, you notice anything different in your body or in your mind. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe you have less emotion or more emotion. Maybe you feel relaxed, or maybe you feel uncomfortable. That's what this practice is about. It's about exploring. It's about finding what works. It's not about getting rid of our feelings. It's about sitting with them and managing them. And it's about practice. It's about using these tools to help ourselves the next time we find ourselves in fight or flight. And so you can start bringing some movement back to your body. If your eyes were closed, you can open them. Welcome back. So this technique is really quite simple, and it's actually something called combat breathing, which was developed by, we don't really know who kind of started it, but it's been used by the Navy SEALs. There's a gentleman by the name of Colonel Grossman. He's a retired lieutenant colonel in the Army who has brought this practice to law enforcement, so to police officers. And he did so because we are starting to see the scientific effects on the brain. And you're starting to, after a lot of practice, you can feel the change in your body. And so again, we did this in the form of a very short meditation, but you can do this if you're sitting in class and your teacher is calling on different people in the classroom and you're nervous because you don't think you're going to know the answer. You can practice this type of breathing. If you're going up to give a big speech, if you're, waiting to get on the field for soccer and you're just nervous, are you going to get the goal or not, So all of these things can be used without anybody knowing. So we can simply sit with our eyes open. We can be, for myself, I can be driving doing it. And it's very simple. I'm just breathing in, holding my breath, breathing out, holding my breath. So it's just a series of 4, like you're going around in a box. In, hold, out, hold. So very easy to do. You can walk and do it. You can be sitting. I mean, it's so flexible, and it really does bring you a lot of benefits. So check it out. Next time you're having a time where maybe you're experiencing a strong emotion, or you feel on edge, you feel like you're in default mode, you feel like you're in grasshopper mode, try this breathing technique and see. It may take you 2 rounds to start to regulate yourself. It may take you 20. So play around with it, explore. It can be really beneficial if you practice it.
I think one of the things we have talked about in a lesson is that making stress your friend, that the way you look at stress makes a huge difference. And I
Mm.
think that the breathing gives us an opportunity to change that. When we're feeling anxious about something, we can do that breathing, and in that time change that from, oh no, this is terrible, to I can do this. I think the way we hold ourselves, the way we breathe, all of that contributes to how we respond. And we talked about how just that mindset can change your physiological response, can change whether or not your blood vessels constrict. And so this helps go a long way towards that, to have a more healthy response physiologically as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
Absolutely.
well, I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, because I know that you're doing a new project, at least I think I saw it, about martial arts.
Yeah.
Can
It's
you
it's
tell,
really
I
it's
want to know a little
been it
bit about it.
Yeah, sure. So I've been teaching self-defense for women in particular for a long time. So women, teenagers, even young girls. And when I started practicing mindfulness many, many years ago, I started to see ways that mindful practice and self-defense were really interrelated. And what I mean by that is that if we are going to use self-defense, it's because we are in a situation that we can't control. So something has happened. And most of the time, what we see in scenarios where people need to use self-defense is there has been some level of awareness that didn't happen. So maybe you're walking in a parking lot and you're looking down on your phone, or you have headphones in while you're jogging, or you're not paying attention to your surroundings. It's an easy way to become a victim of a crime. And so mindfulness really teaches us to just do one thing, right? To just be present. So if we're walking to our car from the store, we're just walking to our car. If we're out taking a walk or taking a jog, we're not texting, we're not blaring music in our headphones so that we're not aware of our surroundings. We're completely present in what we're doing. And if we're completely present in what we're doing and we're practicing mindfulness, and maybe we're doing some meditation, that also increases our brain's capacity for intuition. So we start to tap into that inner knowing. It's sort of that gut feeling when you know something is wrong, or you get that feeling about somebody. Have you ever had that happen where, somebody is walking up towards you and you're like, oh, I just don't have a great feeling about this person. And you don't know why? That's your gut. And again, if we're present and we're aware and we're mindful, we can pick up on those subtle cues. So I started to blend in my self-defense classes. I started to blend mindfulness and meditation with practical self-defense maneuvers. And I've been teaching that course for a couple of years now. And the last few months I've been working on getting it online so that more people can access it. And I just rolled it out a few weeks ago. So it's online, it's ready to go, and it's 4 30-minute videos. So very simple, but it's a fun class, and you're learning some mindfulness, you're learning some practical self-defense. It's pretty fun.
Where can people find that?
It's right on my website. So my website is just my first and last name, michellepalladini.com. And then it's just /shop. So there's a shop tab, and the course is right in the shop tab.
Awesome. I love the work that you're doing. And I think that I would highly encourage anyone to start early in terms of just beginning to get the basics of that mindful practice. And I think that tying that mindful practice and the self-defense, I recently started taking a kickboxing course. And it's been really cool to learn that. And I think that there's a lot to learn about that, and it's just basic good information. So I think
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to check out the self-defense course.
Nice.
But I wanted to finish with just a review for this week. Our reflection is just try out a few of the techniques. Try out the breathing that Michelle taught us, and think about trying one of the mindful apps. Think about trying Michelle's self-defense course with mindfulness. Explore this stuff. There's so much out there, and this is a great time to explore it to help make it through this time period. We're all going through a little bit of a difficult time right now. So how can you use those strategies to help yourself through it? Thank you so much, Michelle, for joining us. And I'm
Absolutely.
kind of sad that this is the sign off for the last class. But
Mm.
please feel free to ask questions on the YouTube, and we'll get back to you. Thank you so much for coming.